Okay, we live? Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start by recognizing and acknowledging the Songhees and the Esquimalt Nation, whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work together. I have been a visitor on this land for almost 30 years. My name is Sherry Bell, and I've met some of you before. It feels kind of weird doing this online, but I guess we got used to it a little bit during COVID. So hopefully we'll be back face to face very soon. But I wanted to just start by just telling you a little bit about myself for those people I haven't met. I've lived on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen people for almost 30 years. I've raised my kids here. My children went to the Victoria School District, and I worked in the Victoria School District for 19 years. I was a teacher, a principal, and a board office employee. And when I left the school district, I was superintendent of schools, and I went to Camosun College for 7 years. So I had the distinct privilege of seeing our students from Greater Victoria School District move forward in their education, whether it was right after grade 12 or 3 or 4 years later, or coming back after they'd had a family and wanted to upgrade. So I've been in education for 40 years before I retired, and I'm privileged to be back working in this district again. And with that, I just want to give a little context. I do have a trustee report later on in the agenda, but I thought I would just hit a few things to start with. We're online, as I said. I am really keen to be face to face. We're working through some challenges in the boardroom itself, and we're looking at how quickly all of those things can be put into place. But I'll give you a better update, I think, at the next board meeting, and I'm hoping maybe by April we'll be face to face again, because I think you have the best dialogue and opportunity for input when you are face to face. And although it's nice to see faces on the screen right now, I wanted to just welcome the partners, the rights holders, and the school leaders who sit at the table when we're actually at a real table. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could just introduce yourself, and you could say what you do or what you're looking forward to. I'll give you a minute just to say who you are, so everybody else can see you. And I've met, I think, all of you, but just in case I haven't, I'd like to be able to see your face and hear from you. So why don't we start? I know I saw some people come in the room when we were just coming online, and I saw Shauna right away. So why don't we start with Shauna, and you can do a little bit of an introduction. 1 second.
Oh, no pressure at all. Welcome. I am Shauna Abbott. I am president of Keepy 947. I've been with the school district for 14 years, going on 15 years, in the capacity of a homestay coordinator with the international program. And I have been the vice president, or was the vice president, for 8 years prior to being president. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing how we're going to make this work for everybody. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for starting us off.
Good to see you again. It's good to see you.
Yes, you too. Okay, I know that I saw Carolyn come in. There she is.
Hi there, my name is Carolyn Howe. I was born and raised here on the traditional ancestral territories of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. Very privileged to have lived most of my life here, and very grateful for that fact and for the stewardship of those peoples who live here and have graciously accepted me as an uninvited settler. And I would like to say I'm a music teacher and a primary teacher at South Park School and I am the president of the GVTA. I've been involved with the GVTA for about a decade on executive. This is my first year as president.
Well, thank you so much, Carolyn. And Anave, we haven't met yet, but I'm sure we will. The floor is yours. If you could do an introduction, please.
Hi, I'm Anave Beliveau. I am the Student Success Manager for Songhees Nation. I also sit on the IEC and a few other committees as well. I'm a Songhees Nation member and a mother. I have 2 students in SD61. I'm actually en route to an LEA subcommittee meeting and I'm at the ferry terminal, so sorry about the noise. There's nothing I can do about it, but I'm grateful to be here.
Well, thank you. That's quite a commitment to be on the way to the ferry, at the ferry, and be online with us. So thank you for being here. Sarah, I saw you come on.
Hi.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sherry. My name's Sarah Winkler. I am the very proud principal of George J. Elementary. And then in my spare time, I am the president of the Victoria Principals Vice Principals Association. So wear a couple hats and grateful to come alongside this whole group in supporting our students in our district.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks, Sarah. And Carlene?
There.
Hi.
I'm Carlene Nex. My pronouns are she, her. I come from the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, and I'm very grateful to live on the lands of Lekwungen-speaking people here in Victoria. I am the vice president of the VC PAC, which is the district level PAC, and we do our very best to represent the over 20,000 families in School District 61. I am the proud parent of a grade 8 student at Lansdowne, and I'm also a teacher at Macaulay Elementary School.
Wearing 2 hats. Well, welcome. Very good to meet you. And is there anyone from 387 out there? No? Am I missing anyone who needs to be introduced? So yeah, Cliff, we're going to get to you a little later on in the agenda, very soon. So the people that just introduced themselves, if we were at the board table, would be sitting at the table. And one of the things that I wanted to just mention as we move forward in the agenda is that when motions come forward, the partners and rights holders and school leaders that were just introduced can actually make comments before the motion. And that's been in place for a long time and will continue to do that. You can just put your hand up when you or hit the hand button when you're ready to do that. One more comment before we get started too is we have a question period in our board meetings, and it's really helpful if people that we can't see on the screen that are watching this live, if they would like to submit a question. We have some that have already come in, and if you could do that before or during E1, after that it'll be really difficult to deal with your question properly. So that's just a bit of a reminder there. And with that, I'm going to move forward to the agenda, and I'm going to approve the agenda as it is. And so that motion is carried. We'll move to A3, which is the approval of the minutes. And these are minutes of the January 27th regular board meeting. Although I wasn't present, I can approve those and I will approve them. And that motion is also carried. A4, 5, and 6, there are no presentations. So we'll move to A7, which is Colin. We have one community presentation. Colin, you have 5 minutes. And I know you're going to be talking about student youth councils in School District 61 schools. Welcome to you. Colin, you're on mute. If you could take your computer off mute.
I'm on mute now.
Thank you.
I am somewhat uncomfortable by this process, but I'm a retired teacher, so I've been to the trenches, and anyhow, my purpose today is to encourage the board to considers adopting a policy, developing and adopting a policy that would be the creation of school student councils in School District 61. I have four recommendations that I would like to share with you. And the recommendations are based on three basic principles I have in terms of my experience with children and students over the years, and common sense. The first principle is that youth voices do matter, and it's really important that adults, especially seniors, recognize that and accept that. Young people know more about the issues. Many of them are living the issues in the community and in the school, and they deserve that representation. And I think that our communities and our schools are going to be stronger if students and young people generally are more actively participating. So I have some suggestions. My first suggestion is that I respectfully recommend that the Board of Education announce its support through the adoption of a policy for the principle of involvement of young people in learning about and practicing democratic government and direct participation in their school and their community. In other words, a policy that is an enabling policy, I think. My second recommendation is that to give effect to this policy would be the creation of a task force or a broadly representative committee, including students, to take a look at and investigate how young people could be involved in School District 61 at the school level and develop some policy and procedures, along with recommendations to implement support for youth participation in the K-12 program at the school level. This committee could investigate areas of youth involvement and governance in our society, focusing, I think, on the K-12 mandate of the Board of Education. My third suggestion and recommendation is that at least one, and this is a bit different from the first two, but I think it's really important that there be a framed copy of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms that would be hung at or near the main entrance to every school in the district and in every classroom, as well as in the board office. This would reinforce, I think, the fact that Canada is a nation which recognizes the rule of law and the responsibilities of its citizens. And I always emphasize responsibilities. This visibility would, I think, on a daily basis, make young citizens aware of their rights and freedoms, and especially responsibilities, to help develop respect for what rule of law really does mean for Canadians. My final recommendation is that the Board of Education consult with teaching staff, probably through the GVTA, on the implementation of weekly class meetings in every classroom from K to 12, at least once a week. The purpose of these is to discuss issues affecting students in their classroom and in the school community, and to elect one of their members to represent that class at a school level student council. Now, I thank you for your time. I've rushed through this very quickly. I would be quite happy to meet with appropriate people, whom you deem appropriate people, to discuss this in more detail. But that gives you a thumbnail sketch, and copies of my documentation I sent into the board office. I think they'll be in the hands of Kelly Gardner, who is working in the Secretary Treasurer's office. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Cliff, for coming tonight. I'm looking out at the screen there, and I know, and in this room that I'm in, and I know how important student engagement is to all of us. We were, in fact, just before the cameras went on, we were talking to our secretary treasurer about a very extensive process that she went through in high schools and middle schools, talking to groups of students about budget. So it is something that we're all really, we feel very strongly about as well. So I greatly appreciate your presentation and the time that you've taken to talk to us tonight. And Cliff, I think what we'll do is somebody from the board office will connect with you probably within the next few days.
Good. I look forward to that.
Thank you. Take care. That concludes the district presentations for today. So we'll move on and get to correspondence. There wasn't any correspondence to speak of, and now we're at the trustee report. So I'm going to do my report verbally and let you know just a little bit about what I've been doing with the help of a lot of people. I've been trying to arrange times to meet with all of the stakeholders, of the rights holders, the school leaders over the past few weeks, and have met with quite a lot of people and will continue to do so. It'll probably take me to the end of the month to meet with everyone. I haven't met with BC PAC yet, but I did talk to Braden yesterday. We're trying to find a time that's going to work for everyone. And as I get to know people, I think that what I want to express tonight is I have 2 emails on the website. There's the official trustee email that people can get a hold of me at, and you can click that very easily. And I actually have my old email address back as well. So there's 2 email addresses to get a hold of me. And I'm hoping that as we move forward over the next few months, that we can not only get together separately, but get together as a group that represents people in our community, leaders in schools and in unions and with parents and with rights holders. I really feel strongly about having conversations at a table face to face when we can together. So I've been throwing out the idea of having something I've been just calling for now as a working title, the partners table. With only one trustee, we are going to be suspending for now, and we'll see how it goes, ed policy and ops, and replacing it with the partners table. And as I've been talking to groups, people seem to be liking the idea. And so after I've finished meeting with all of the groups, I'll try to draft some sort of terms of reference to send it to folks and see what they think of the idea, or give feedback on what it could look like. And we're first meeting to talk about budget next week with representatives. The budget process has been altered, and that'll come up later in the agenda just because of some changes and disruptions to calendars. So we'll be looking at that a little later with Katrina. But the few other things that I just wanted to mention that we're working on is the ad hoc committees that are in place will continue to meet. They didn't have any next meetings set up, so we will be looking at scheduling some meetings certainly right after spring. Well, we'll be scheduling them before spring break, but to meet after spring break and take a look at the work of the ad hoc committees that have been formed. We'll talk about budget later. Policies and bylaws. Now, if you look at the policies and bylaws, some of them are challenging because of the fact that they reference a number of trustees, and it is just one now. So we will have to take a look at wording changes temporarily anyways, and we'll be bringing those to the next board meeting. The next board meeting will be March 31st. And then we will follow the regular calendar that was set out at the beginning of the year, which is the Mondays that have been set out on the website if you want to take a look at that. But the next one will be the 31st. I've also met with Kevin Godden, who is going to continue working on the safety plan with the same group of people that he was working with before. I am not heavily involved in that process. Kevin will be, and yet the work that they do will come to a future board meeting. So I think that's all I have right now for a verbal update. I just want to thank everybody for being flexible, for being willing to come to yet an extra meeting. It's I know it's hard with especially for people that are juggling so much right now. So I greatly appreciate the time that you've given me. And, as I meet people and listen, things formulate in a different way after collectively hearing from everyone. So it's been really helpful for me. And hopefully it has been helpful for people that are out there right now that have met with me. And we will continue to do that. So thank you for your time. I'm going to move to the next part of the agenda, which is D. So board committee reports. So the audit committee, we met and had a really lengthy conversation, probably a lot longer than they maybe thought it would be, but it was very helpful to me. So I thank you for taking all of my questions at that meeting. And so from the audit subcommittee, we have a motion that I'd like to accept and carry at this meeting and thank people for the work that they've done there. I'm going to move to E, district leadership team reports. Superintendent's report. Do you want to say anything? I loved your report, by the way. It was great. I really liked seeing the highlights from students and schools, and it was really great to take a look at. And I like the links on there. I don't know if anyone went in and went to the links that were on the superintendent's report, because it takes you to more information. So thanks, Superintendent, for doing that. Do you want to highlight anything?
Sure, thank you. So just referring to page 21 of the pack-up, there, as official trustee Bell has said, there are many different opportunities and learning events that have happened that are linked onto that report. In addition to that, I would like to highlight a few things before gratitude. So early learning and childcare, it has been working in collaboration with Indigenous Education, and they've hosted a virtual welcome evening for 2025-2026 kindergarten families. And this focused on supporting each child's unique pathway to school. One of the highlights was a graduating Métis student shared their experience from kindergarten to grade 12, and also offered advice to children and families who are starting out in their journey. So many thanks to all of the people who participated in that evening. And then with Pathways and Partnerships, that department has been working a lot on a bunch of different activities. One being that they've compiled data from When I Grow Up research project, which was a project exploring how elementary school students perceive their futures. And the study examined factors such as their aspirations for future careers and their perceptions of how well their education is preparing them for the workplace. And in the spring, these findings will be shared, which I think all of us are interested in. Always interested in hearing the perspective of an elementary student, and then looking to craft and create new paths forward for them. With the gratitude section, there are several different groups that I would like to express gratitude to. The Oak Bay High School did experience a fire a few weeks back, and both the fire department, staff at Oak Bay, students at Oak Bay, and the facilities department did a lot to assist in the cleanup, and many thanks to them for their help. Also, we had a Lahal tournament at Spectrum, and Indigenous department, as well as staff and participants, an extremely successful tournament, very exciting. and one that I think is being brought forward to other districts. So again, lots of work to create that, lots of support, and very successful. And then on February 14th, we had a professional development day. The GVTA hosted and organized and presented at Tapestry. Again, lots of organization pieces to that, and fantastic work there. CUPE 947 had a professional development day as well. Again, very successful event, and the Vice Principals and Principals Association had a professional development day. And we had Elder Barb and John there for learning around Métis culture. And I just want to thank everyone for that day. So that is my gratitude section for my learning report.
Great, thank you. I'm just curious, I'm looking at, I really like the idea of elementary students partnering with high school students, and under your report, February 7th, Ferry Door Project, George J. and Vic. Hi, actually, we have the principal from George J. on here, so I'm sure you can fill us in too, but Superintendent, can you, do you know anything more about what the partnership was, or what's a ferry door?
A ferry door, yes. So a ferry door is literally a ferry door made of wood that opens and closes. So Kevin, Bonnie, and Dave from Pathways and Partnerships worked in collaboration with George J. School as a whole, and students from Vic High, grade 11 and 12 students. And they came to George J. and they helped the students at George J. learn and use a saw, a drill, a hammer to create a wooden ferry door that they then decorate and I believe create a story. So that's where I'd be leaning into Sarah for more information on the story that they will be creating with and about the door.
Sarah, can you, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so the next part is to take it to our loose parts, and they will take all their pieces, create a story, craft it, and then write it, and then share it. So it's going to be a continuation and bridging many different aspects of learning, starting with their hands and working to their writing.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for the report. That concludes the superintendent's report. And school calendar, Associate Superintendent Arts, this has been approved by the board before, I believe, that the 26, 27, and now you're working on 27, 28. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. Last June, the 25, 26, and 26, 27 calendars were approved, and so they're just there for reference. Those dates have already been approved.
Okay.
One of the things we've been working towards is looking at having a 3-year calendar so that staff and families are able to plan as far ahead as possible.
Great.
So we are in the process of now consulting around the 27, 28 school year.
Okay.
And so we've just had one meeting with parents and employee groups around that. And so having a 3-year calendar is the goal. And the other thing we're striving to is to attempt to align as much as possible with Sauk and Saanich school districts.
Oh,
So
that's good. Yeah.
I also meet with representatives from Sauk and Saanich, and we're trying to align as much, especially around the major breaks, winter break and spring break, which are major ones that have impact. So the hope is to, by the end of April, bring back by the board meeting proposed dates for 27, 28.
Okay.
That can then go out for 30 days of public feedback. And then by the end of the school year, we approve it. Even though we're 3 years down the road, we are able to be that far ahead through the ministry calendar process.
Okay, do you happen to know if Sauk and Saanich are doing the same thing?
Yeah, so Saanich is for sure. When we met with Sauk, they may only be doing 2 years this year and one more, or they're going to do 2 now and maybe 1 at the end of the year.
Okay.
They just have a few other contractual things that they're working through.
Great, thank you. And there's no motion there because it's already done. All right. Secretary Treasurer, we're on to E2. Do you want to highlight anything in E2A?
I think the only thing I would like to highlight is the visit to the Mahal tournament. It's very nice to get out of the board office and into schools and to see students, and it was quite moving actually.
Great.
In there, and I had no idea what Lahal was, so I learned a few things too.
Super, thank you. great thing to highlight, and that I'm looking forward to getting into schools too, after spring break for sure. Anything else you want to talk about on that part? No, okay. Well, we're going to move to amended annual budget. That's E2B for everyone. And I will pass it back to you, Secretary Treasurer.
I'll just need a minute. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so this evening we will be presenting the 2024-2025 amended annual budget. And before I get into the details of the budget, I really would like to acknowledge the financial services team who two of them who are here in the meeting tonight. One of them is Julie Lutner. She's our Associate Secretary Treasurer. And Hervinder Parmar is here. She's our Director of Finance, Budgets, and Financial Reporting. And these two and their team have been working tirelessly over the past few months to finalize this budget, to bring it forward to you this evening. So just want to thank them for all of their hard work and dedication. And so if anyone's following along in the agenda package as well, it starts on page 26, and I will reference the documents as we go through. So if you would like to look at the actual budget document that gets submitted to the ministry, you can keep along with the presentation. So we always like to, when we're thinking about budget, keep in mind that the resources and budget allocation should always be centered on student learning experience. And we look to the strategic plan, the enhancing student learning report, and also school plans to align to student success. So this is the amended annual budget that we are looking at. In April 2024, the board approved the 2024-2025 annual budget. You will sometimes hear that referred to as the preliminary budget or the prelim budget. And then the amended annual budget, you may hear it referred to as the final budget. So the ministry requires that school districts submit two budgets, one with projected enrollment and the other after enrollment is finalized. So in April, the annual budget based on our estimated revenue and expenses was 318 million. And the budget that we're presenting this evening, the amended annual, has increased to 332 million. And what this budget is based on is the revenue and expenses that are tied to the actual enrollment as of September 29th. And then any new revenue and expenses that were confirmed after the annual budget was approved in April. And also the expenses that were related to unspent budgets in the prior year that were carried forward and we plan to spend in the current year. And we are following public sector accounting standards, which require us to include all of the funds. So you'll see reference to the operating fund, special purpose fund, and capital fund. Just some highlights around this budget. Some of the more significant changes. Our enrollment did go up, so our operating grant is up. Our operating ministry operating grant funded student FTE is up by 154.6 FTE from what was projected. And due to the higher enrollment, you'll also see the variable operating expenses. So that's the staffing and the supplies will increase along with that. In our international program, enrollment in the regular program is down by 10.4 FTE from what was projected. And the enrollment in the short-term program is comparable to our projections. Investment income has decreased by 0.11 million, and that's because, as you may have noticed, the Bank of Canada rates have been declining over time, and they're lower than what we had projected in the annual budget. Labor settlement funding received 2.29 million. That is funding that covers off the 1% cost of living adjustment, or COLA, we'll refer to it as, and that's for teachers, support staff, non-educator exempt, and administrators in leadership roles. And also the 2% salary increase for admin in leadership roles that was announced after the annual budget was approved in April. And lastly, there's some new revenue that we received since April. The Classroom Enhancement Fund, or CEF, remedies 2.7 million. 2 new literacy related grants, inclusion outreach literacy 284,000, and K-12 literacy supports professional learning grant of 35,000. So we'll start off with the operating fund and just look at the overview. This is a comparison of the annual to amended annual. And we will look at the revenue and expenses separately and the prior year surplus appropriation in upcoming slides. So what this table shows is that our revenue is up by 7.4 million. Our expenses are up by 6.8 million. And the net revenue is up by 0.6 million. You'll see some net transfers to other funds in the amended column of 2.9 million, and that is operating grant funding that is spent on capital asset purchases, and they get transferred out of operating and into capital. Projected accumulated surplus at the end of 2024-25, this is our best estimate, is around 7 million. It's down 1.9 million compared to the prior year. If we are looking at the increase decrease column, the project budgets are down by 1.5 million. This decrease is due to some operating capital projects. There's a artificial turf infill replacement at Oak Bay and technology projects, just over $1 million that we expect to be completed by the end of June. And there's some department carry forward funds as well, about 0.36 million that we also expect to spend by the end of June. School level funds, these are unspent budget in schools. We have a policy that allows schools to carry forward a certain amount of unspent budget. It's 40,000 at elementary and middle and 80,000 at secondary. And so we looked at current balances and did a projection to the end of the year. It is expected to be a bit lower. School supplies were reduced by about 20% last year, which should mean there should be less left at the end of this year as well. Purchase order commitments are just slightly down. Again, just looking at historical amounts and estimating that. The planned surplus to balance the budget is down by 0.3. So there's 1.9 million surplus at the end of 23-24 that was used to balance the year we're in now, 24-25, and a 1.7 million surplus from 23-24 that we're carrying forward to help us balance 25-26. So we're anticipating that 1.6 million surplus from 24-25 could be used to help us balance 25-26. We had initially estimated our shortfall in 25-26 after that 1.7 was applied be around 300,000. This has now increased as financial services continues to work on the budget. So we will need that entire 1.6 million in order to balance the budget in 25-26. Our unrestricted operating surplus, also referred to as our contingency, hasn't changed. It remains at 1 million. If you just look below the table, you can see our total prior year operating expense. And then we've taken a ratio of our contingency over that. So it's 0.4, it's just gone down slightly from the prior year just because the expenses have gone up and the contingency has remained the same. Just highlight that the district does have a policy around operating surplus. It is based on a ministry policy. It is a recommendation for boards to hold a reasonable, unrestricted operating surplus. It's there to cover off emergencies or any unexpected changes. Ideally, we would hold between 2 and 4% of the prior year operating expenses. So which would be about 5 to 10 million. We're currently at 1 million. So we have a little ways to go in order to build that up to a reasonable balance. Lots of information in this slide. This is what makes up the 3.4 million projected surplus that we're anticipating at the end of this year. The top item is the 1.7 million that the board previously approved to carry forward to 25-26. And then we have some items in the list that are revenue increases. So our operating grant went up by 4.3 million. Some of that comes out because it's for English language learners or Indigenous education or inclusive learning. And we had some additional international profit and also a slight increase in net rental revenue. Revenue decreases that we've seen, investment income, as mentioned previously, also crossing guard revenue. And then expense increases of about 2.2 million. So direct costs that were related to the operating grant increase. The board committed to purchasing 700 Chromebooks, which we've done. There's a supplement towards continuing education and distributed learning. Service fees such as legal and insurance are up. Department supplies are slightly up, and also miscellaneous other. And there have been some expense decreases that we've experienced. Teacher and TTOC costs are down by about 0.5 million. Departments were contacted and we've confirmed a planned underspend of about 0.2 million. We've seen some benefit savings in the current year. It's a big one, around 1 million, and also utilities decrease of 0.6 million. So looking specifically at operating fund revenue, just highlight some of the larger variances that are here. And if you wanted to look at the actual budget document, you can find it on page 43 and 44. So our operating grant is up 4.4 million, and the September school age enrollment is up by 153.5 FTE, which translates into 1.4 million. Funding for unique student needs is up 2.9 million. So that's ELL, inclusive education, and Indigenous education. And then also supplement for salary differential is up just slightly. So that basically our average teacher salary in our school district is slightly higher than the provincial average. Other Ministry of Education grants are up by 2.3 million. This is related to the labor settlement funds for the 1% COLA and the 2% salary increase already mentioned. And tuition is up by 0.3, and this is the international education tuition. As mentioned, their FTE is in the regular program is slightly down by 10.4 FTE from projected. But the tuition is actually higher because they did increase the rates and more students paid at the new rates than they did at the old rates. So we've seen a slight increase there. The short-term program, FD is comparable. The tuition did increase, just due to a change in the program types from actual to projected. And other revenues. So this is miscellaneous revenues that might include donations, other grants, vendor rebates, commissions, and also international education and miscellaneous fees. Most of this is related to an increase in the international ed miscellaneous fees, which includes homestay placement and monitoring and activity fees. And then rentals and leases, up 0.3 million. This is just an increase mainly due to the provincial election. And also we have a new artificial turf field at Vic High and some new licenses to occupy. And lastly on this one is the investment income, as mentioned, has gone down. Interest rates have gone down. When we built the budget in April, we were anticipating rates 4.95 to the end of December and 4.7% after that to the end of June. It started at 4.95, but we're currently down to 3.2%. So that's why we're seeing a decrease there. And operating fund expenses, just looking specifically at salaries to start with. This is on page 45. If you want to look in the ministry document, I'll just highlight the larger variances. So teachers up 1 million, which is a 0.9%, directly related to the 1% COLA. The COLA was announced after the annual budget was approved, so you're going to see that as a theme throughout. Principals and vice principals down slightly. There was the 2% salary increase in COLA, but it's offset by some of the VPs being assigned to special purpose funds. So Community Link is a perfect example of that. Educational assistance up 1.8 million or 7.7%. This is a result of increased inclusive learning enrollment and also the 1% COLA. Support staff up 0.6 or 2.6%. There was some additional clerical staffing allocations due to the increased enrollment. Some of the schools use their school supplies to fund some facilities project, which shifts it into staffing, so capital staff in operating. And we had increase in custodial hours due to the provincial election and the rental. So that was offset by that rental revenue and the 1% COLA labor settlement funds. Other professionals is up by 0.2 million or 3%. This also related to the labor settlement funds, 2% salary increase and 1% COLA. And the last one there is substitutes, which are up by 1 million or 7.8%. This is mainly tied to increased inclusive learning enrollment, labor settlement funds for the 1%, and there is increased ESA, and that's Employment Standards Act, paid sick leave as a result of an arbitration. And employee benefits at the very bottom there are down 0.04 million. And the reason for the lower amount, usually when you see the salaries go up, the benefits go up, but we did have some lower than projected expenses for WorkSafe BC, employment insurance, and Canada Pension Plan. And then moving away from salary and benefits, we're looking at services and supplies. And services are up 1.2 million or 15.6%. Some of the reasons for the increase are international education contracted services and agent fees due to increased enrollment, legal fees, insurance, point of sale fees, also contracted services for school funded projects. And also we see departments and schools reallocating their budgets to services to reflect what their spending plans are for the year. And then also in the amended annual budget, we add in the carry forward budgets for both schools and departments so that you see an increase in services for that. Student transportation is up 0.3 or 25.9%. And this is due to added bus runs due to increased inclusive learning enrollment. Pro-D and travel also up 0.3 million. More Pro-D for teachers through the collective agreement. And again, we see reallocation of department and school budgets to Pro-D and travel based on their planned spending and also the carry forward budgets from the prior year. And supplies up 1.1 million or 22.8%. These are additional allocations due to the enrollment increase. Also carry forward budgets. And then we've seen inflationary increases, most significantly in facilities supplies. Utilities, lastly, is down 0.6. This is due to a reduction in natural gas usage from what was projected for a few different reasons. We've had some warmer temperatures on average. There's a continuous optimization program with BC Hydro and Fortis. And also we've done some boiler upgrades, which has a positive impact on our expenses. Moving now to special purpose funds. This is Schedules 3 and 3A, which are in your agenda package on page 4851. And these are funds, separate funds that are set up to track revenue and expenses for money that's received either from the ministry or external parties, and there's restrictions on how that money can be used. There are no transfers that are permitted into special purpose fund from operating or capital. And some of the larger funds you may be familiar with are school generating funds, community link, feeding futures, and CEF, or classroom enhancement fund. This here is a list of the special purpose funds. It shows you a comparison of the revenue between the annual and the amended annual budget. So the revenue actually reflects planned expenses because we match revenue to expenses. And I'll just highlight some of the larger variances here. School generated funds is up by 0.6 million. So these are the funds that are collected at school level from parents, PACs, community for things like field trips, activities, and fundraising. And this was adjusted to more closely align with prior year spending. Official Languages and Education Protocol, OLEP, otherwise known as Federal French, is up by 0.1. The annual budget was initially set at the 23-24 budget and was just recently confirmed. The Classroom Enhancement Fund, or CEF, is up 4 million. This is the ministry funding that we received to offset costs related to implementation of the restored GBTA collective agreement language as it relates to class size and composition. So the ministry provides only a portion of the expected staffing grant until funding is confirmed after September 29th. And also they don't confirm our remedies grant until after September 29th. So that's why you see such a large variance between the annual and the amended annual budget. Student and Family Affordability Fund is up by 0.2. It's just for that one, it's not new funds that were received. It's just that our carry forward at the end of 23-24 was higher than what we had projected. And health career grants up by 0.1. And this was due to an additional health career dual credit expansion project funds that were received after the annual budget was approved. And inclusion outreach literacy up by 0.3 million. This was a new grant awarded to support the provincial resource programs participation in new provincial K-12 literacy supports initiative. And now we're moving on to the capital fund. This is in relation to Schedule 4, which is on page 52 of the agenda package. And the capital fund captures all the expenditures that are related to land, buildings, computer hardware, software, vehicles, equipment, and can be from a variety of sources, including provincial grants, local capital, and also transfers from operating and special purpose funds. This is Schedule 4 here on the screen, and I'll just highlight the major changes in the increase and decrease column. Provincial grants up by 0.9 million due to some additional roofing projects. And you'll see the matching operations and maintenance expense down in the expense section. Net transfers from other funds up by 0.8 million. Most of that is from transfers from the operating fund. That's the 700 Chromebooks that we purchased for schools, but also operating grant carry forwards for portables and artificial turf infill replacement at Oak Bay. The special purpose fund, there was a small amount there for some school-based computer technology and equipment purchases. And on this slide is from statement 4, just shows that the school district is projecting the acquisition of capital assets at 42.9 million for this year. 2.9 of that is coming from operating, 0.2 from special purpose, and most of it, 39.8 deferred capital revenue, which is ministry funding. And then we have some a motion, a bylaw, and another motion there. But I think I can pass that back over to you. Just
Well,
stop sharing this.
thank you. That's a lot. That was a lot. Thank you so much for that detailed report. It actually gives a little bit of life to the printed version that we've all been reading. And before we go to any motions, I'll go to our group on the screen in a moment to see if there's any comments or questions. I have a few questions, Secretary Treasurer. Mine are more specific to the special purpose funds that I'm looking at on page 32. So there, it looks, okay, my first question is, it looks like this is a new program that, and you said that the Inclusion Outreach Literacy Program and the K-12 Literacy Supports Professional Learning Grant. And with their title, you can kind of guess what is happening, but perhaps I'll go to Superintendent for a little bit of explanation as to what are the kinds of things that are happening in the district with those specific funds. Can you give us a little bit of a picture of?
Sure, thank you. So we are the host district for the provincial outreach program, and this program supports and serves all districts across the province. Funds for this that we receive were used primarily to purchase staffing, which expanded the team, teachers, speech and language pathologists and OTs. We also looked at focusing expanded work around building a new literacy focused online course as a professional learning opportunity for educators, collaborating with other outreach programs to create literacy guiding considerations for students with multiple and complex needs, and partnering with 3 school districts to develop team capacity and deliver evidence-based literacy interventions. So that's the provincial outreach program literacy piece.
Oh, can I ask just a follow-up question on that one? So we hold all of the funds there are for the province, not just for our school district. Is that what you said?
Correct. So we host the POP, so provincial outreach program. We're the host
Okay,
district
so that's
for
been
the province.
Oh, so that isn't new then. I think
I think
okay.
the funds that came in were to expand some of the work that was already
Being done.
occurring.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
Yeah. And then with regards to the literacy professional learning grant that we received, we're still looking at how to allocate it, but really looking at professional development and screening costs. So training, learning support teachers with early literacy screening, looking at implementing it through the spring and into next year. Also, professional development collaboration funds for literacy support for tier 3. So that including the learning support teachers, the early learning support teachers and classroom teachers, and collaboration time again for in-school support between the sessions that occur. So available to elementary and middle schools.
Okay, great. So the other question I have, and perhaps, I don't know who would answer this, but I'm assuming that the Feeding Futures Fund is, so Community Link used to be part of the school meals program. Has that shifted to feed? I'm looking for someone that knows the answer to that.
Yeah. Yes, no,
So Superintendent Powell, there you go.
yeah, our Feeding Futures program is completely separate than the Link program.
Oh, it is,
It
okay.
is a fund that is received by all 47 schools. And the two big focuses of that fund that we're moving in our district is really creating a culture of food in our schools. So that, I mean, sometimes in some of our schools, we're having to build infrastructure so that we can create food and share food with our students in the buildings. And shifting away from gift cards and shifting away from packaged food that's perhaps brought in to having it, made as being part of the culture of the building. And then the second thing is we're really aiming at achieving a 30% spending on 30% local BC food to be shared with students. And while I'm talking about this, I'd really like to take just a moment to recognize Emmanuel Henry, the vice principal at Macaulay, but she's also our Feeding Futures coordinator, does a ton of work for all 47 schools.
So all schools are part of this program. And when you say change the culture of food and to be more made, who makes the food?
That does depend on the school. Some of our secondary schools, for example, have culinary programs and they're involved in that.
Right.
And in our elementary schools, it's a school meal assistant that some of the funding can be used for. So that is a little bit dependent school by school, level by level.
So is that what would have been the old Community Link funding for school meals programs? Is that still there or is that folded into this as well?
Not folded in, just
completely separate. Okay, got it.
Fund, yeah, and the Link funding is now used to support other items in schools.
Got it. Thank you. That's really helpful. Great. And those were my only questions because those seem quite new to me, and everything else you gave a really good explanation. I did have some marked up, but you kind of covered it all. So before we go to the motion at E2B, I just want to just look at the screen to see if there's any comments before we move to the motion. And seeing none, just a pause, I will move to the motion. So it's recommended that official trustee of School District 61 Greater Victoria agree to give all 3 readings of the 24-25 amended annual budget bylaw at the regular board meeting February 25th, 2025. And I would like to pass that motion. And then recommended next motion is that the official trustee of School District 61 Greater Victoria approve the amended annual budget bylaw in the amount of this will be the toughest one I have to do, $331,797,94,923 to be read first, second, and third readings all right now. So I support that motion and the motion is carried. Moving to the following motion, and I missed the end of that, didn't I? The motion and that the secretary treasurer and the official trustee be the authorized, sign and seal and execute the bylaw on behalf of the board. So I would carry that one as well. Do you want to make any other comments before we move to the last motion?
No, this just ties into
I'm just
the,
checking.
oh,
Sorry, and I'm just checking the screen as well. Yes, seeing no hands. Go ahead.
yeah, just, this was mentioned in the presentation, just to, now, obviously, it's a projected, operating surplus, so we would, actually carry, if the amount differed from that,
Right.
then we can make an amendment, but, this is, financial services best guess at what we think will be there at the end of the year. If we carry this now, then we can, incorporate that into our budget process and know a little bit more closely what we're working with as we work through that.
Right, and this is pretty normal business for any school district at this time of the year. The motion is that the official trustee of School District 61, Greater Victoria, approve $1,623,613 of the projected unrestricted operating surplus at June 30th, 2025, to be carried forward and applied towards the projected deficit for the 25-26 annual budget. I support the motion and the motion is carried. Any comments at all before we move to the next one, which is also you? So monthly financial report is C, and I believe that's on page 53 of everyone's package. Yes, it is. Okay, did you have any comments on that,
I'll just
Secretary
do a
Treasurer?
brief overview and then, I can turn it back to you. This is, this is a report that we would ordinarily present at the ops. And so we're bringing it here for your, just for you to have oversight of how things are going on a monthly basis. This report has the prior year numbers, so what was reported last year at ops and then this year. So both of the years, the numbers that are reflected there were run after month end. The budget that's in there is the annual or preliminary budget plus any changes that have been made since then. And then actuals are July 1st to January 31st. And so when you're looking at the revenue and there's a percentage column, what that percentage represents is the amount of revenue that was budgeted but not yet received. And so the current year, we're sitting at 46%, which is exactly the same percentage as last year.
Great.
And then when you're looking at the total expenses, that percentage is the amount of expense budget that's still available to spend. And so current year, we're at 49% compared to 50% last year. So quite comparable.
Good, thank you. Before I move on, there is no motion attached to that, but I'm going to do a pause to see if there are comments or questions. Okay, seeing none, thank you for that, Secretary Treasurer. We're moving on to D, which is the facilities report. And I'm going to ask Secretary Treasurer, who's doing this report? Is it Director of Facilities?
Might do some highlights from that.
Marnie, are you on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, there you are. Oh, now I see you. Okay, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple quick highlights. This report for the vandalism covers 6 weeks, so it's a little bit higher than last month. So we keep seeing a number of schools get tagged every month and a number of windows get broken. So that's unfortunate, but it continues to happen. The maintenance team did a little over 1,400 work orders, so they're continuing lots of ongoing repairs. The inclusive projects, we've just finishing up an inclusive washroom at Northridge, and Cloverdale, they're working on some sensory space, I believe. And then we're just in the planning stages at 2 other schools for some inclusive rooms. Minor capital, I think the most pressing project right now would be the Sundance portable move. So we've got all the documents are submitted to the city and they're reviewing them currently. And we have a plan right now in place to potentially move the portable over spring break. And that's for next enrollment in September. There's a couple childcare updates. The sites are progressing nicely. Operations, we hired an assistant manager who starts in middle of March. So that will be a nice addition to the team. For transportation, the field trips, we have a steady booking and they keep increasing. There always gets booked up before the end of June trips. We've also opened the registration for our regular busing and we've got well over 100 students already registered. For the network, communications, infrastructure, and security department, lots of packages are serviced every single month. We've got a number of fob upgrades. So Cloverdale is a complete fob school now. And so is the Torquay at a school portable. It's a fob system. And we continue to go and do all our exterior premise keys. So that's just a security project that we're working on to get all the district's premise keys done just to make sure our schools are secured. Climate, for the energy manager, we've got all of our LED projects for this year are done, and there's a 3-year return on investments for them. And we've got our applications are in progress for the next years. What else can I tell you? For minor capital, Cedar Hill Middle School is progressing really nicely. Lots of trades on site. They're doing drywalling, mudding, taping, installing tiles, millwork. Everything's going as planned. It's a $45 million project, which is currently on track. The student should be in for September, and then the project will wrap up in April 2026 when we finish demolishing the current school. Whew, questions?
Thank you. I have a few questions. Just in your climate and energy category, what would you say is making the biggest difference as far as energy savings?
I would honestly have to say the projects that have the best return on investments. So for example, the LED lights, we're able to take that money that we're saving and actually put it into other energy projects, which is really nice. And I'd also say that the goal of educating students, so the I can't speak tonight. So the goal of educating students through the educational awareness campaign, these are important because the actions not only help our district, but they actually help at home as well. And these are our future adults. So it was interesting because I was talking to Brian our energy manager, Brian, a little while ago about this. And he said if everybody in the school district actually were on their best did their best energy awareness and closed doors, closed windows, heat was at a regulated temperature, turned off the light switch, by 2023, we could hit our climate action target of decreasing our greenhouse gas emissions by 50%. So energy awareness is really important. Those would be my
by 20, what did you say? What was the year?
2030.
2030. Wow. And how in your assessment, or his name is Brian, in Brian's assessment, what if everyone did that, we would hit the 2030 goal. Where do you think we stand right now? Like, are we? That's a tough one to put you on the spot, but
it is a tough one. It really depends. I mean, if we had unlimited funding, we'd be able to match it because we could do all the boiler upgrades and get more to energy, electrification. But we're in a good place. Like, there's a lot of things we can do to meet that goal. So we are in a good place. I think Brian could speak a little bit better on that than you can, but yeah.
That's, I mean, I liked your answer when you said that students are making a difference and the education program that was put in place is making a difference. Because you're right, that not only does that help the school district, it also it's helping our community and raising students that can make good decisions. Sarah, I can't stop looking at your dog. Sorry. So thank you for your update. And Cedar Hill is looking great. I don't live too far from there and drive past it all the time. And it's a huge building and it's so close to the road. You actually notice it a lot more than being pushed back, but it's going to look just great.
It will when it's done. It will look fabulous.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for your report. We don't have a motion attached to that one. I got so excited about that, I kind of lost my place. We're going to go to E2E. Let's see, ministry funded enrollment. Back to you, Katrina.
Thank you. So we've included under the 25-26 budget update, the ministry funded enrollment projections. So these are our projections for next year. They were due to the ministry on February 15th and submitted. The ministry will use those projections in their funding announcement that will be coming in by March 15th. And that will also be the operating grant that we use in preparation of our annual budget for next year. I'll just highlight some of the assumptions that have been made in the projections. So in regards to head count, K-12, we use data from Verigar Systems. It's a software system that does enrollment projections, tied with local knowledge of recent and historical trends, and also adjusted for impacts of recent Government of Canada measures regarding international students and open work permits. Our funding from the ministry is based on FTE, or full-time equivalent student. So any students that are in grades K to 9 are at 1.0 FTE. Grades 10 to 12 is slightly different. We can get funding based on eligible courses that are taken. So 8 courses would be equivalent to 1 FTE. Our average is slightly higher than that. So for 25-26, we're using a ratio of 1.095, which is an average of the ratio from 23-24 and 24-25. So the process that was used to create these projections, as I mentioned, we use Verigar as a starting point. And then we have an internal team, which is made up of our associate secretary treasurer, district principal, student support and registration, the director of finance, budgets and financial reporting, district principal of IT, and both associate superintendents. And so they work together to review those projections from all of their various perspectives, adjust for local knowledge, and then they do another review again once we receive kindergarten registration. And the supplement for unique student needs enrollment is prepared by financial services in consultation with the department heads. And there are a number of factors that are considered when they make those projections. Some of those factors are birth rates. So there was a decline in birth rates in 2020, which is resulting in lower kindergarten enrollment for September 2025. We also look at incoming kindergarten and outgoing grade 12, and our incoming kindergarten students are lower than our outgoing 12s for next year, which would ordinarily result in a decline in overall enrollment. But one factor that has impacted us, at least over the past 4 years, is net in-migration. So we've seen a steady number of ministry-funded international students due to immigrant permanent residents, including refugees, and also families coming here on work and study permits. However, in 2023 and 2024, the Government of Canada put some measures in place to stabilize international students coming to Canada. We have seen a 40% reduction in international students coming in on study permits in 2024. And anticipate a further 10% in 2025. The government also implemented some changes to open work permits, which we expect will have an impact on family members of the work permits provided to family members of temporary residents. Yeah. We're also seeing more families moving out of BC for more affordable provinces, and that's been the historical trend. So overall, we're seeing a decline in the total inflow of ministry-funded international and intra-provincial students.
Yeah.
So
I think that's happening everywhere at all levels.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to take a look at the table on page 63, this is a nice snapshot of our K-12 school-aged enrollment. It provides a comparison of the actual FTE from the year we're in now, 24-25, to what we projected for 25-26. And if you look specifically at the blue column, go right to the bottom, total school age enrollment, we're looking for a very slight increase next year. So 0.6 FTE overall. There is some variation at the level. So kindergarten, as mentioned, is down 112 FTE. Total elementary down 149 FTE. Middle is up 65. Total secondary 90.6 up. And then we have a section with Victor, continuing education, the link, and alt ed, and net decline of 5.9 FTE there.
Thanks.
And then on the last page is a table that you'll see for the supplement for unique student needs. And this also a comparison to actual in the current year. Inclusive ed, there's 3 levels of funding that we receive. Level 1 is down by 1, and levels 2 and 3 each are up by 2. Projecting no change for ELL, English language learners, and no change for Indigenous education, and just a very slight increase for adult education.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for you or somebody else, Secretary Treasurer. How close, like the process is one I'm quite familiar with from way back when. So the starting point is Beauregard. How close is the Beauregard numbers to the actual end number that comes out of the committee? Like the start, yeah, from where Beauregard starts to where it ends.
I can answer that, but I'm actually gonna see if I can pass it off to one of the team members who are actually working with the numbers.
Yeah, happy to share. I think in some contexts, Beauregard is very accurate, and others not so much. So the local knowledge is really important,
right,
around what's happening in those neighborhoods and the in and out rate that comes with that. So I think it's a really solid starting place, but one that would be not accurate enough to go with just on its own.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. I like the description of the process. That seems like it's come a long way.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, thank you for that overview. That was really great. And we'll move to the budget development process. Back to you, Secretary Treasurer, again. And if you wouldn't mind just spending a couple of minutes talking about what has happened so far, and then taking a look at the tentative budget process for the rest. Now, I also want to just mention that because I won't say we're in the middle of budget, but we're a ways down the road without having our actual numbers. So it's hard to project what's going to happen without that government information. But budget starts so early, and you know, there's a lot that goes into it. So maybe if you could just take a few minutes to talk a little bit about what you've done or your team has done so far, and then go through the new document.
Sure, yes. I think probably the main pieces that we've done already in the budget process was we started off this year with an initial budget feedback survey that we just opened up publicly. Anyone could complete it. A couple of meetings ago, we provided some additional information on that feedback. I think it was January 27th meeting. But we had responses from community members, parents, staff of I think everyone was represented in staff, also 4 houses. And so that feedback was more to just get some feedback on the enhancing student learning report focuses, but also priorities, what people's priorities were as we look forward to the 25-26 school year. The second piece that we did was the student connections meetings, and those were meetings with each of the middle and secondary schools, including SJ Burnside. So 18 meetings that we had with groups of students. We did send them some guiding questions ahead of time. Some of them worked with that, some didn't. We've received varying feedback from those groups, which was also presented at January 27th. So if anyone wasn't able to see that, it's really quite interesting. Can look that up historically. Yeah, so our budget process started, I think it was initially approved in October. There was an amendment in November to make some changes, and we've been working, moving forward with that process ever since. Now we have made some proposed amendments to the remaining months. So starting in February and moving towards early April when the budget is approved. And so highlights, yeah, there is a page 66, I believe, in the agenda package. Just noted the enrollment projections because that really does tie into what we talked about this evening, but also the March 15th grant announcement will be based on those projections. And then also this evening talking about the new process. Next up is next week. We've kind of held the date for an internal budget working session in person, just an opportunity to meet together in person to talk about the various aspects of the budget development process, the budget, and hopefully have some good conversation. Invitations have been extended out to representatives of the 4 houses. Also our education partners, which include both QP unions, GVTA and VCPAC. Also, VP, VPA, yourself as a trustee, senior leadership team, and members of the district leadership team. After that, so we'll wait for the operating grant announcement because that will help us determine what funding we're getting. And in the meantime, Julie and Hervinder and their team will be working very hard to try to finalize that budget for next year as much as possible. And April 2nd, we are planning to bring to the public in a virtual meeting a balanced 25-26 annual budget. Also within that meeting, just having an opportunity for public or anyone really to submit questions about the budget either before the meeting. So once the package is released, they can send questions in that we will do our best to answer in the meeting, but also allowing for some feedback after the budget is presented. And followed up the following week on April 8th is the special board meeting, and that's where we'll have the final version of the 25-26 annual budget and the 3 readings of the bylaw.
Thank you. I've got a question. When you look at so the March 5th is scheduled right now for during the day. That may not work for parents, and had a conversation, as I said, with the VCPAC president yesterday. So we may need to support them and add another meeting or look at some alternatives. I haven't had a follow-up phone call with him yet. The March 15th interim operating grant announcement, and then the April 2nd meeting. How soon after, I know this is a lot for your team, after that announcement, will we have an idea of what comes next?
I may want to defer over to Associate Secretary Treasurer Lettner on that, but I think we try to have the budget as far as possible prior to that announcement. So the announcement we're anticipating will probably be on the 14th, which is the Friday. but it's right before spring break. And
No.
so, people are gonna be away, and so realistically will be probably the week of March 31st. Yeah,
That,
that we would be able to at least put those new numbers in, and
I
if
see,
there are
okay.
any adjustments that need to be made, so. In a perfect world, we would get more funding than what we anticipated, and we wouldn't have to.
Right,
Try
and-
to find more savings, but if we're in a position where we are in a shortfall, we have some more work to do.
okay. And Associate Superintendent Lettner, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, Katrina was correct. We are aiming to have everything in draft form for the likely March 14th announcement. That way we'll have a rough idea of where our surplus likely deficit will be. And then spring break team will work through just reviewing, looking through the information, and then the week of March 31st is when we should have a really good idea.
Okay, thank you. And one of the things that isn't on here but will be is a review of the process once we're finished to take a look at, because it was kind of broken up this year. You did a lot of work up front. There was a document that went to the board last month, and then now we're putting together the next pieces. So it probably won't look exactly the same next year. And it would be nice to kind of see what worked and what didn't work this year. I've got two hands up, and I'm going to go to Caroline. Caroline?
Yeah, Carlene, that's right. Thank you. Through the chair, I really appreciate all the time spent on the budget, and I realize that it is not a perfect system at the moment due to all the changes that have happened and the timing. And I also really appreciate, as you said, you spoke to Braden about the fact that the meeting is during the day on a Wednesday when the majority of parents are working and are unable to attend. So we appreciate you trying to find time so that the partners can be consulted. I had a question about how the trustee is going to advocate for increased funding from the ministry. There was a letter sent out to the minister, the premier and the minister of education in September of 2024, signed by all of the trustees and all the partners as well, requesting additional funding for public education and really demanding adequate funding for this. And just wondering if there's going to be any advocacy in terms of funding from the ministry.
I think I have to see the budget numbers first. We could be surprised. I don't think so, but we could be. And I have a number of meetings set up with the Trustees Association, and that's one of the questions on my list as far as the Trustees Association and where they're going. So I can't really answer it fully yet, but it is on my radar to look at what is happening across the province and in our own school district. But across the province is also important. Thanks. Carolyn.
Thanks. Just I have a couple questions about the process of that, if that would work. On the March 15th meeting, how much will be like ready to share with us in terms of that draft? Just wondering what the process for that meeting is and how much actual information we might be able to have to look at.
On March 5th, you mean?
Yeah.
The March 5th. Pass it over to Secretary Treasurer.
That's next week, so I'm just thinking of where we're at right now. I think we would like to be able to have some conversations about the information that was presented to the board on January 27th, like some of the priority investments. There were some one-time reductions there. There may be some discussions that we can have around where we are currently providing support and what our priorities are. But I don't realistically, I think one of the reasons why we shifted the public meeting, which was originally for March 4th to April 2nd, is to allow us to be able to get the ministry funding. So we know, we have a better sense of where we're at, because even already we put out a number for the deficit, which is totally wrong at this point, because there's the information that we have is just changing every day. So realistically, I don't think we're gonna have like a balanced budget to present next week. Yeah.
Can I add something to further your question? If there's, if the folks that are going to come to the March 5th meeting, if there's something that you have a question about or something that you'd like to see at that meeting, or a question, is it possible to have a conversation about whatever, please send it to us, because as the agenda is being built, we want to have the right people in the room, and we want to have the right conversations that you need us to have. As Katrina said, there's certain things they won't have ready or won't be able to, but other things, as you're having conversations or thinking about it, please send that, and probably best to send it to the superintendent, secretary, treasurer, because they can probably answer it better than I can, but certainly copy me if you want. That day is intended for you. And if there's certain things that we can provide you, or have a person in the room that can explain something, look back at the document that was circulated too on the 27th of January, because there might be something on there that you want to dig into further. But I'm glad you brought that up, because again, it's such a short amount of time that we've got between, here's your numbers, now here's where you have to make a decision, because the staffing packages come out, and because all of the other trickle down effects of the budget happen so quickly. So if we can do anything to support the partners and rights holders and schools, we will. So fire away as you think of them, all right?
Thanks. Could I ask another question too?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. So when I hear that you'll be working on March 31st to get that balanced budget draft, or the week of March 31st, sorry, to get that balanced budget draft, and then it will be presented April 2nd at the meeting, and I anticipate you'll get it out to us in advance as soon as you're ready. Yeah. So what, in between that period, between April 2nd and April 8th, if partners, rights holders, stakeholders feel that they want to bring forward ideas for changes and amendments, how would we go about that in that period between the 2nd and the 8th?
Good question. Can I pass that to you again, Secretary Treasurer?
Possibly two pieces to that, I would say. I think we will definitely be seeking feedback. We haven't quite figured out the mechanism for that, for anyone who would like to provide feedback on what was presented. And that would, we would collect that up to prior to April 8th. Perhaps if there's, like if you're talking about if GBTA would like to specifically share with us your thoughts on some of the things that are on there, I wonder if we might be able to arrange.
I think another really good point. I think what we could look at, and we can get back to everyone on the screen right now, is after that April 2nd meeting, if there are things that you want to share, again, I don't mind having an opportunity for another meeting, such as the meeting on March the 5th. So we could set a time, and it doesn't have to be a whole day this time. It can be, from 4:30 to 6 o'clock or whatever works for people, to come together before that March 8th date. So if we need to add one in, we can do that. Why don't we tentatively look at that possibility as an optional meeting for the partner stakeholder table? Would that help, Carolyn?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
It's hard to get my head around,
Yeah,
really.
no,
I get
is.
it. I thank you. I really thank you for trying to answer the question so well and think around it with it too. I mean, just what I'm thinking about is, and I'm not anticipating this at all, but imagine we looked at that budget on April 2nd and there was a shocking cut to our music programs.
Yeah.
I know that won't be the case, but imagine how would we then respond in those 6 days to make the case that we needed to look in a different direction. That's kind of what I'm worrying about.
Okay, we'll take that one away because it's a good point, and I see other heads nodding. So, okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Seeing no further hands up, there is a motion to let me just find it here. Oh. Okay, here's the motion that the official trustees, School District 61, Greater Victoria, approve the new 25-26 budget development process, including looking at the possibility of another time to get together between the 2nd and the 8th if necessary. Does that, I think that kind of captures what we talked about. So a small amendment to that motion, and we will get back to you. And that motion is passed. Moving on to G1 is just a reporting out of regular in-camera board meeting of the 27th. There is no new business. Question period. Yeah. Oh. Aha. I missed a question period. I skipped over that one. I talked about it at the beginning, but thank you. We did have some questions that were sent in, and they're all on a similar theme, not a surprise. And it was the theme that we were just talking about. So they're about budget. And the questions that I will read out and cluster a lot of them together. So I'm a parent of 3 children, elementary, middle, secondary. Our family was at every protest to ensure School District 61 continued its excellent music programs, including elementary strings. They're a foundational part of education. My worry and my question is, are elementary strings and middle school music being considered for reductions in next year's budget? As we've kind of gone over today, it's a little bit early to talk about any specific. See how good we're doing with energy savings. The lights just went out. It's a bit early for that, and we've kind of gone over where we will go with that. There were a few other ones talking about music. I will read them out, and the answers are very similar. Question. Somebody said there's no email address for the newly appointed trustee. On the website there is, and it's official trustee at sd61.bc.ca. They also have a question. We've seen a deterioration in our elementary strings program and a decrease in staffing for music, resulting in an increase in class size. What will you do to keep our music programs thriving, accessible, well-funded? This is clearly a strong desire of our school community as well as the community at large. And again, we are going to work through this during the budget process. Another one very similar, given the overwhelming responses with School District 61 families to the school district proposed cuts to elementary strings and middle school music in the past, are you considering making cuts to these valuable programs? And of course, can't answer that right now, but with the help of people around this table and out at that table, we will certainly be talking about that. where we will go as far as the possibility of any kind of reduction. And then the next one is how will parent input be sought for next year's budget process, since the education partners meetings is being held during work hours for parents, and I think I've already addressed that, and will likely not be able to attend. So if we don't have parents at the table, we will talk. I will talk to Braden again, and we'll figure that out together, because that input is essential. So I think that's it. No more questions. So now, having gone back to F and already hit D, new business, notice of motions, there's nothing there. There's a motion to adjourn, but before we do, I just want to say a couple things. First is thank you all for being here, and I'm not sure how many people are out there watching, but I hope there's a few. And tomorrow's Pink Shirt Day, and that's always been a really important day in our school community, where people wear pink shirts, and it's the message, it's the story of why we do that is really important. So if you have students or kids of your own, or you're wearing a pink shirt and somebody in your household asks why, tell them why, because I think the more we bring anti-bullying messages and true stories of what has occurred in our country and other countries, and especially now, it's pretty important right now. There's a lot of negativity out there, and this is a day to be positive about anti-bullying and how important it is to treat each other with respect and dignity. And that's what I want for the school district, is for all kids and staff to come to school, to come to work, feeling respected and feeling like they're part of something bigger than just themselves. So have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for being with me tonight, and I look forward to spending more time with you. Take care. Thanks.